summer was a bridge between the old and the new, I guess. So last winter I decided to write down like memories from childhood and stuff. I was trying to remember like what it was like to be a child and remembering my life, and I realized like I couldn't access it. I couldn't access that character of who I used to be or like what it used to feel like to be a kid. And then I realized that when I was a child I played a lot in fantasy. Like I pretended to be like a Harry Potter character, witch type thing or whatever, and my mind is very fanciful, and so if I wanted to remember what it was like to be me, I had to not remember what was really happening but remember my fantasies, you know, and once I remember the fantasies I could totally go into that world. I could remember everything. I don't know, I've been thinking about this Joan Didion quote where she says one is well advised to keep on nodding terms with the people one used to be. I mean, that's just what, you know, this little village in the Midi in France is. For me, it's keeping in contact with the people one used to be. But I guess what I've been thinking about and what I would add to Joan Didion's quote is that we also have to remember the dreams we used to dream, the fantasies we used to fantasize, the people we used to dream as. Maybe, and I think when you move to a different country or you have a big life shift, you think a lot about how you would maybe separate your life into volumes or different eras, and I think about how like a lot of the eras of my life aren't divided by what was happening in the physical reality only. It's also the philosophies and ideas and dreams and fantasies that I was picking up and then letting go. And I think this summer there was this absolutely wild heat wave, this terrible heat wave, dangerous and devastating, and it put me, you know, back in bed for weeks and weeks and weeks. But from that vantage point, I once again kind of entered my mental world where the external fades away and you're in this mind space, and your mind is your world. I suppose because this summer, you know, the longest I've ever spent in the south all at once has kind of got me thinking about time and staying acquainted with the past and time collapsing on itself, you know, like this phenomenon that you experience more and more as you get older, where the linearity of time seems a little bit less convincing as like a concept. You know, when you move house and you have to like move all your stuff, and it's chaos, and suddenly like every jumper, every book, every hair tie you've ever accumulated and owned is like on your floor. You're trying to put it into boxes and you're kind of suddenly like, what the heck, like how have I accumulated all of this like stuff, these like relics and fossils from all of these different eras. Like it's like you're physically looking at like the absolute chaos and mess that is a human life, because when you see all of these like postcards and tchotchkes and like stuff from all these different moments, you kind of it doesn't make sense all jumbled up, and it also kind of does, and you kind of see the futility of it all, but you also see kind of the beauty, and you kind of recognize yourself in it, but you also don't, and it gives you this kind of extra perspective. And I think I am moving, and as well as having to sort through my jumpers, it also feels like I'm sitting in the middle of the debris of like all the people I was, because I lived in the one place for my whole life pretty much. And so moving has felt like confronting all of the people I was, all of the dreams I dreamt, all of the worlds that I imagined and then destroyed and then imagined again. I made this new friend this summer called Sarala, who is making the most beautiful art online to do with food. She kind of turns old traditional French food into kind of vegan options, and it's all to do with that melding of the old and the new, you know, the new choices and ethical choices melded with the ancient, and kind of bringing our modern choices into ancient traditions. And I think, I don't know, I read this thing about how certain older European countries, especially the ones that have been self-ruling for a long time, they're very good at preserving towns and castles and stuff because they can think in like historical time. Like they understand, they're able to think in centuries, and so they don't knock things down because they understand the value of continuity or something. And I don't know, I guess for this, which is sort of, you know, the scrapbook of my summer, I wanted to throw out a few thoughts about the way time has felt it was collapsing sometimes, how it's been a heady summer because it feels like every person I've been has wanted to show up, to give their 2 cents on how the girl's doing. I think that's how you know you're kind of in the traditional phase between eras. And I think this summer did feel like this kind of beautiful liminal summer road trip between 2 distinct eras of life. Like it didn't feel like it belonged to any era of its own. It was just sort of floating out there in the void.
I think that what worries me about like the vegan movement trend as a lover of vegan food is that we tend to, it's wonderful, international food is wonderful, all the flavors, and it's really exciting, but we're tending to lose the warmth of traditions of that, you know, and France has such beautiful traditions around food, and even the different regions of France provide the food that's needed for that region. So like here in the south, melons and tomatoes in this heat wave are just perfect for what we need for our electrolytes, and they're part of the traditional food here. So, you know, a nice French lunch would be like some melon with, traditionally maybe with some like ham or something.
Yeah, but it's fine.
But you know, to me, it's how do I take those traditions and without the animal products, but keep that that warmth and joy that comes from doing things traditionally.
Yeah, and the attitude, the ceremony of the food.
Yes, the ceremony. Because traditions are what makes culture operate. You know, they're like the grease for the wheels. You know, they keep it flowing. And imagine if France didn't have aperitifs and didn't have the time they take, the 2-hour lunches, and it wouldn't be France. You know.
Yeah.
So. Well, I love vegan food. If you're just at a vegan cafe having a burger or like having nachos, that's not really the French way. Whereas if you're having the French lunch of like courses, taking your time with each one. I remember when I was studying abroad in Lyon, one of the courses was literally a slice of melon on a plate. And I was like, I've never thought to just have a slice of melon as a course. And they enjoyed it with the pork and knife, and they savored every bite of it. And then it made me realize how delicious a melon is. I think that we can definitely, because France is so big on fruits and vegetables, and their markets are just overflowing with beautiful fruits and vegetables. And they take so much pride in like the quality of their produce. It could really be conducive to a beautiful vegan culture.
It's almost religious, like the philosophical idea of sitting around a table and like what is shared there, and the idea that like it was passed down. It's very ancient. It's something we all engage with. It's very ancient, especially if you're removing yourself from other old institutions. It's like, we're secularizing. That's great, but like we need to have something to ground us in our reality. There's something bigger than us.
There always has been like the trajectory of the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's our ancestors. We're connected to them, and I think that's why there's so much. Why do we love old spaces? Why do people feel this like peace in an old space? I think there's connections there, and it gives us some kind of joy and comfort. And I would hate to lose that with food. So that's why it may seem so simple, but just making a beautiful vegan meal, but serving it on an old plate, it makes me happy.
Right.
It makes me enjoy my food more. I think food tastes better when you eat it with someone else. It always tastes better when you eat it with someone else. Same with alcohol, with coffee. It always tastes better with someone else. It's like food is meant to be shared, And I think sometimes with our fast culture now, with veganism being kind of young and a more modern thing, we don't have those traditions, coming into it. So I think it's up to us, to create that, and bring those in with us. That's why it's so fun to just go and sit at a French cafe and observe, or go to a traditional French restaurant, even if I can't always eat everything there. Like we talked about, just have an aperitif and look around. I always like going past restaurants at lunch and peeking in and seeing like what they're eating and how it's set on the plate and the dishes they're using. And it's all part of it.
In ancient villages and steam trains, medieval vegetable markets, one can live in a world a little outside of time. One can encounter a version of oneself that is deeper because she is timeless, because she is human and alive and on earth in the most essential sense, connected to all the people who went before, those within her, the dreamers, and those entirely different from her. When I was sickest in the summer of 2017, I made a playlist on Spotify. Sun-streaked songs, chilled out songs. The songs felt fresh where I felt groggy and depressed. Where I felt injured and weak, the songs were playful and alive. I listened to the song called This Feeling by Alabama Shakes every day that summer. Not because I related to it or because it felt particularly relevant. In many ways, it was wholly inappropriate to how I really felt. But I listened to it like a dream. I felt its sentiments in my body, and on the wings of their poetry, I could imagine feeling the way they felt, like everything was going to be alright. I found myself listening to that playlist for the first time in years, as Meg and I sat on a bus across Europe heading toward our new life in the south this September. I'd fallen mysteriously into one of my old futures, but it didn't feel like a dream come true in the traditional sense. It was more organic than that somehow. Like life took me benevolently into something wonderful, and there, in that road of good fortune, I happened upon an old dream, and an old dreamer, and an old self. It is entirely due to that little girl, that little dreamer, that I find myself here. And it is also entirely due to chance, and to time, and to things I never expected, and to people I became without entirely designing it. Who we become is just something we cultivate and plan and create, and also something that happens to us, that exists organically somehow outside of us in some weird, mysterious way. But nevertheless, here I am, still sick, yes, but able to listen to that song and to find it to be relevant, able to say with total honesty that I have found that feeling of everything being alright.